It's going to be Gestalts, and we're going to talk about AAC. We're going to talk about the two and how they work together. I'm so excited for this episode. There's so much for all of us to learn in this area. And I'll be quite honest with you, there's very little in terms of research as to what to do and how to use Gestalts and AAC. And there's very little also out there currently in terms of what is the how to step-by-step process to do so. I have Farwa Hussein. This is the area she specializes in. We should start off what is Gestalts and how you would define it. And then we're going to talk about what is the research in terms of how we could use Gestalt and our AAC. Can you give us a rundown? What is the research on using Gestalt language and our augmentative and alternative communication devices?
I love this question. Thank you so much for having me. Let's just backtrack a little bit and talk about key terms. When we are discussing the term gestalt, we have to realize, well, first we have to figure out what does this actually mean? Gestalt is a term that means that a child is using delayed echolalia and it's tied to an experience. The biggest thing we need to know is a gestalt is individualized to the child. It's something they've either heard, read, seen. They're holding it in and they're recalling it at a different time. This could be minutes later, it could be hours, it could be days later to recall a message. So I want you to think of it as the soundtrack of the environment that they've picked up, they've held, and now they're sharing that experience with you. Now, we can't give a child a gestalt. We can model phrases, we can enrich their environment, but the second it becomes theirs, they hold it, recall it, then it becomes a gestalt. Before then, it's just phrases that we end up modeling. So many times clinicians will say, give the child lots of gestalt. You can't. It's individualized to them. But gestalt, scripting, delayed echolalia all mean the same thing. It just means you're holding and then recalling at a different time. Depending on the community that you belong to is the terms that you are going to use. If you are following the Natural Language Acquisition Framework by Marge Block, you can find all that information from the Communication Development Center.com's website. They use the term Gestalt. And that refers to Gestalt language processors, individuals that are using delayed echolalia to communicate and share their experiences with the world. If you are speaking with the autistic community, many times they like to use the word scripting. Things that they heard and they're recalling to share a message, they prefer to say, we are scripting. Now, if you are coming from a medical background and you're working with other professionals, you may use the word delayed echolalia. So all of those mean the same thing, and it gets kind of tricky and hairy in what term do I use. But in general, if you're using gestalts, you're saying that this is an individualized phrase that the child has picked up and they're recalling it at a different time, and it's meaningful. More than anything, it is meaningful for that child. I'll give you an example. This morning, I was in a session and a child dropped something. And instead of going, oh no, the child went, it's so expensive. That it's so expensive meant the same thing as, oh no. And that is how they're relaying a message. So that child, that one script or delayed echolalia or gestalt meant, oh no, I dropped it. But there's that, it's so expensive, but it's meaningful and it's relaying a message. And that message can fall under a variety of functions of communication. It could be to protest. It could be to share joy or empowerment. It could be to share transition, like I got to get out of here. They're doing it in their words that they borrowed from the environment. Now, the other part of your question is, hey, what's the research with Gestalts and AAC? And to be completely honest, we are still in the works and trying to figure out what the current research is. And there's not any empirical research that links or have studied Gestalt language processing and AAC together. I know there's some great researchers like Carolyn Gaddy who's working on that, and that is her area of interest currently. What we do know is we go back to the foundations that there is strong evidence to support individuals that are using delayed echolalia and making sure that we're honoring that, and we want to support that. So echolalia is a key to unlocking language. And even last month, there was a recent article out that said that we need to make sure that we're viewing echolalia as meaningful and not extinguishing it. There is strong evidence to support the use of early AAC with our children to help support their language development. There is a lot of clinical evidence of clinicians reporting that using AAC with their individuals that are Gestalt language processors or using delayed echolalia helps support their language development. And most importantly, the autistic community says AAC is very helpful for us to communicate our wants, our needs, our desires. We want to base all of that to help support and guide our practices.
And I think what you bring up is a really important point because I haven't seen as of yet research that looked at, okay, if we give the child a communication device such as Lamp for Life, and it has phrases in it. So instead of play, it says let's play. And then over here, we did a random control trial. They have play and they create their own sentences. We don't have that research that says it's better to use gestalts or it's better to use the analytic approach in which they're combining the words to create their own phrases. It's a really important question to ask, and it's a really important question to research in a random controlled trial way in which all things are the same. You're just looking at it. One is going to give you phrases or scripts, and one of them is going to give you words to put together yourself. If you're thinking about what we know, what would you say would be the evidence-based practice approach that you would use with an AAC device with the child? Because we don't have that research yet. So what do we do on Monday morning?
Yeah. So, for a child that we know is using Gestalts to communicate, first and foremost, we need to open up their world and give them access to high tech AAC
Mhm.
for many reasons. Could be that a child may have dyspraxia and motor planning issues. We need to get them the access to be able to communicate their wants and needs on the days that their body doesn't get to flexible language that those times. For Monday morning, if you are in a session and you are trying to figure out, well, what do I do? First and foremost, we need to start with building our relationship and starting with that developmental relationship based intervention. Having the buy in and having the client know that this is safe space. And when it comes to the AAC, we need buy in there too, where it's joyful connections so they're interested and excited and inspired to use their device. So, the place where I like to start is making sure I know the original sources of their adults. It could be our movie lines. So sometimes I will program the short clips that they are trying to communicate. I have a kiddo that likes Peppa Pig, and there's a certain intro scene jumping in muddy puddles, and that's how they greet me by jumping in muddy puddles. So I'll have that clip on a page that instead of having a phrase page, but embedded where it's supposed to belong, like in a greetings in the front page. And as the child, we move them and model and move on and add the phrases that we think that they're wanting. Initially, it'll be like, I'm jumping in muddy puddles. And you might model that. And then you model, hey, how's it going? Or hello. The child, we're modeling without expectation with both the AAC, with our mouth words, and giving them this dynamic language environment. When the child picks up on this, they have the option to press the AAC system, use their mouth word to be able to communicate that. Initially, what they'll do is they'll watch the video over and over again or the audio recording of their original Gestalts. Then slowly we'll model in the hi, how's it going? Or hello. And the child, as they start unbundling their language, where they realize that each unit of meaning, because for a Gestalt, one script, which could be in varying length, means it's one unit of meaning. When they start realizing that that individual words mean something, they'll start using naturally the words that they need to shape that script into flexible language. So if you have a child that's scripting using Gestalt, start there. Meet them exactly where they're at and give them the phrases. Now, best practices currently is that we do not create a folder just Gestalts or folder of just phrases. The whole point is to make sure the child is also learning the motor plan of how that AAC device is used. If they're learning the motor plan of just, I'm going to the phrase page, as their language starts enhancing and we're building their language development, they need to be able to go through and build their language. So say if you have word power, you're using word power, it'll go to a categories page. And then if you're under school, it'll be like, I'm going inside or I'm writing or it's time for school. You might have that. So they'll know they'll go to that school page. So when as they're unbundling language, it's time for school might become just school or time to go. But they'll know exactly where that is and where the pages are and where all of those associated core words to those might be. So the goal is to also build the receptive language component to their expressive language. So building them from the foundation up.
You mentioned a couple of important concepts there, and I think the concept that I really take to is all of the above when it comes to these AAC devices. And just like we have all of the above, when someone sends you just confirming that you received this package, you don't want to type in, "Thank you so much, I did receive it." You press the button, "Thank you." The one button that gets the job done. When it comes to children using AAC, if we take a step back and say, how do we communicate today? We used our pen, our phone, a keyboard, our voice, our gestures. We use 10 different methods to communicate today. Don't take any of those methods away. And I like what you're saying, Farah, is you're saying we have the gestalts there for you. The press that single button and say, how are you doing today in your words and how you express that. But we also have those single words, like that keyboard, so that you can develop the skills to read and write, which is going to be huge. And you're talking about language comprehension. When you're looking at these robust devices, it's function, feature, class. You say, what is the verb? What does it do? Then you go to the next page will be, what is the category of it? So you're saying places you go to. And then you're saying the category. And you have the school, or for instance, and then you have the features. You're building the comprehension while you're expressing it. It's all of the above proposition. When it comes to AAC and Gestalts, it's not only Gestalts. This is how they learn. And we have this device, and it's all Gestalts, and it's pre-programmed. You're giving everything to the child.
Kelly, it's very rare to have a student that's only in one stage of the natural language acquisition framework. Every child is different, and the children that are going to come on our caseload, each one is going to have individualized needs. So we need to make sure that we're customizing the AAC system to that child. Currently, there's no program that is just for quote unquote Gestalt language processors or for just one type of kiddo. That's why it's so important for us to really get to know our student, to know what they will need to further their language journey, their communication journey. And we need to think of it as communication journey because it's not just about getting them to get those mouth words. We want them to be able to communicate more than wants and needs, all of the other ways that we use our language to connect with individuals.
That it's really important that it's very robust and that we're not gatekeepers. I remembered in the past, it would be like, here's 2 symbols for you, and then we're going to move up to 4, and then we're going to move up to 6. And the research does show here's a device with thousands of symbols for you at your fingertips.
You'll realize many of the kids are using YouTube and phones so beautifully. They will be, I'll have 2-year-old kiddos that are using their finger to swipe and change through and pick the videos they want to. Give them access to that on their AAC systems. And it's really cool to be able to do that, especially for the younger ones. So I'm going to share a little story with you. I had a little friend who we started AAC at about a year and a half. Wasn't sure if it was gonna work because he was a sensory seeker and making sure he's running around the room, never really sitting one space, and I'm just modeling without expectation in the system. And I made sure to add more phrase-based language in that system. So one day he comes in and he just looks at it from the corner of his eye, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, is that the buy-in I need?" The next time they comes in, he punches the AC system, it falls down. Oops, I think he's trying. We have to rethink how children are also connecting with the system, right? And then it was a full palm touching it. And a couple months in, he goes on the swing and starts crying and then walks over to the AAC system and press, "Something's bothering me. I have to go to the bathroom." So at 2.5, being able to communicate, "I have to go to the bathroom, something's bothering me," is such a beautiful way to interact. And that behavior that could have gotten really large and big was very easily avoided because he was able to communicate what he needed. We have to think about that as well. Like, we're providing opportunities for success and connection with AAC systems.
What would a typical session look like where you're incorporating an AAC device with a preschooler with autism? Let's start with a beginner. You're introducing the AAC device for the first session. And what would it look like with a child that has competence with the AAC device?
Oh,
And
I love this.
with them.
You First and foremost, we are thinking about the pyramid of learning when we're looking at the child. So when we are looking at the child, we are looking at how is their nervous system? Is it regulated? How is their sensory system? Is that regulated? How's their body doing? And then we go in and layer in the language. For a child that's well regulated in the session, we are going to start with joyful interactions with the AAC system. It's going to be things that they really enjoy and they really love, and I'm modeling it without expectation that the child is even going to look at it. We're never doing hand over hand with the child and having them actually touch the device. If I can get the child to even look at the system, that is a great first session. Many times what will happen is I will just model and use my mouth words along with it. And depending on if this child has verbal mouth words, is where I'm going to think about how I'm going to model the language. So if this child has a lot of scripts and they're singing a lot and quoting a lot of movie scenes, I'll match them there and then model on the device as well and with their talker. If the child is non-speaking, then I'll use my words and model along with it. So, and I'll think about adding functions of communication in their environment. So, how are you using that system? And initially, I prefer to start with a lot of empowerment. I did it. I'm so great. I'm amazing. This is fun and it's joyful. We'll do about it. This is fun. I love this. This is great. Or just even if we just do the button for fun. In those initial sessions, what is more important than anything is having a connection with the child, making sure that they feel safe and comfortable. And then the AAC system just enhances the level of our connection. And we are putting it in a place where they can see it. We know research says that many of our autistic children have better peripheral vision and they prefer to look corner of their eyes. So when I'm thinking about where I'm putting the AAC system, maybe it won't be in front of them. Maybe I'll place it in the corner where they can actually use the corner of their eye to see and just kind of glance over at it. When it's things that are joyful and fun, the child will more likely just come and start pushing the buttons themselves. And that's fun. And we start there, and then we start layering in the supports on making sure we're modeling in more and new icons where they're becoming familiar with it. And we also have to rethink that STEM, quote unquote, on that AAC system. Many children in just normal language development have babbling, right? They'll repeat the same thing over and over again. A lot of times with our AAC users, initially they'll play the same button over and over and over again, and that's them learning the system, and that's totally okay. When I am setting up a system for a child that I know prefers a lot of intonation and is singing songs and repeating movie scenes, I'm going to think about the pitch and prosody of the AAC system. So I'll actually go through and look at the voicing with the child and see what they prefer best. Because certain voicings, the children will cover their ears or they'll shout, and they just don't like that synthetic voicing of that digitized AAC system. Many times I'll increase the pitch of it and the speed of the voicing where it sounds more like natural speech. And that usually helps get the buy-in as well. When we have the child, and no matter what age they are, they can let us know if they like the sound of the system or not with their body language and the way that they look at us or don't look at us.
I'm so glad that you mentioned stimming because a lot of people look at the devices and they say, he's just stimming on it. And what I see my kiddos love to do, and I would do the same thing because it's like if you're staying at your friend's house and she hands you her remote control, what do? You look at every single channel. You're like, all right, where's the golf channel? Even though you don't watch golf, you have to go through every single channel, even though you're going to go to the Bravo Housewives at the end of the day. You need to know where everything is, and you're gonna go at every single channel on that remote control. What my students do is they wanna press every single of those 6,000 buttons on that device, which is wonderful. And that's how they explore. So they're going to go to locations, and they're going to go and press on the 84 locations on that device. Then they're gonna go to the next one, which is going to be actions. They're gonna press the 84 actions on the device, just like we would do when we get a remote control. They're getting the lay of the land when you go somewhere, and that is such an important step.
One fun feature for our kiddos that are Gestalt language processors and using delayed echolalia is many times because they're so drawn to music, they will start using the A system as a synthesizer. It'll be like a drop in a beat every time. They'll learn the patterns of the words, and that's part of the learning journey and the exploration journey, and we need to realize that, and sometimes when we are modeling with our mouth words, we may just need to match that tone of the beat that they just dropped. Think about that as well when we're layering our supports and our language.
Yeah, going completely multimodal. This has been so helpful. Thank you so much for all of this information that you've left us with today, Farwa. And I really appreciate you and your all of the above approach to using the device and saying what matters first is the connection, the relationship. And you're not going anywhere if you don't have that relationship. That is something that we can't underscore enough. And that this is not something that the child has to do. You have to use this device in order for this to happen. I think that an important point you made is modeling. And what I think in our field, a lot of people expect is I'll model it for you and then you're going to do it. And I like for my Lamp for Life training, my greatest takeaway was you model it 9 times, you model it 90 times, and then they'll do it. You don't model it once. You model it again and again and again and again and again. Is that what you find too? Is that it's not a model it once and give them an opportunity. It's model it and model it and model it.
Yeah,
And
and part of that modeling is the buy-in from the family. We also need to have that carryover at home too. So we need to model it in our sessions, but also outside the sessions. And I always tell parents, find a time where it's easiest for you. So it might be bath time is when the child loves being in the water, and then you're modeling all the things about bath time and it's wet and I like this and bathtub and ducky and all that stuff. Where then it just becomes kind of a normal thing, where it's just, "Oh, I'm just using the iPad to just add to the environment." Yes, modeling happens, and we need to create an environment where the child lights up and it forms an experience for them, and then they go back to it, and they'll be able to use that talker so much more.
well, thank you so much. That's a great note to leave this on. Farwa, if we wanted to get in touch with you and follow you, where should we follow you?
You can follow me on Instagram on First Phrases Official, and my website is firstphrases.com.
That said, roll up your sleeves and do what you do best, which is make the world a better place, one child at a time. You're always going to be first.